Welcome to Watch Diary. My name is, of course, Ryan Snelling, and I'm super excited to be here with you today. It's a wonderful day outside. Easter Sunday, at the time that I'm recording this, it is 10:49. I don't think I've ever recorded or started recording a podcast closer to the time that I've woken up than today. Did I say that sentence right? You get what I mean. I was hoping I would get on here and see pillow lines on my face. The only lines I can see, though, are my wrinkles and my receding hairline or lack thereof. But regardless, I just rolled out of bed. I got some plans later on today. I had to, of course, go get my trusty Trenta water and my trusty Trenta cold brew. That's how we do it on Watch Diary. If you are a new listener, welcome. We always start trusty Trenta cold brew. It's exciting. So yeah, happy Easter if you celebrate it. If not, it's all good too. I hope you have a great day today. I'm thinking about Brando, my co-host on Hot Takes and Sausage. We had to take the week off this past week because Easter's a big week for him. And if you don't know by now, he works for the church, and so he had to spend all week getting ready for his Easter service. And so we'll probably talk a little bit about that. I'm sure he has all the funnies. So Christianity's own Brando Hall was off this week, but we'll be back next week. And I think we're also going to discuss an Indian film. I can't remember, Python or Pathan, Pathaan is how you spell it. It's on Prime Video. For those of you who don't know, Brando and I had a ton of fun covering RRR and Bahubali on the channel last year, and we're ready to get back into some Indian cinema. So I think we're going to talk about that on another episode later. But anyway, all that to say, right here, right now, I'm excited. I'm waking up. I've got my cold brew. You know, you might be listening to this or you might be watching this because you're a new viewer of the channel, and I greatly appreciate it. This podcast is called Watch Diary. The word diary is just as important as the word watch on this podcast. I like to just shoot the breeze. I like to make it my own and just chill, talk about my life and how said movies or said television shows affect my life and vice versa. So that's what this is. This is a Watch Diary of Ryan Snelling. It is an audible representation of my Letterboxd account. So that's just what we do. This is going to be a short episode today because I don't want to spend a ton of time talking about all the news coming out of Star Wars Celebration because I just don't have that much to say about it, only because I'm trying to manage expectations, and so I don't want to go down a speculation rabbit hole. But there is stuff to at least acknowledge in the realm of Star Wars, so we'll call it that. And of course, I'm going to discuss the movie Air. I thought originally I was going to have seen the Super Mario Brothers movie up until this point. I did not make it. I missed my showtime. There was a phone call I had to take from a certain somebody that may or may not have seen some videos that I put up recently, and it was a good call. It was a pleasure to speak with said person. So I sat in my car outside of the movie theater and just chatted on the phone with a certain individual, and it was good. It was a good time. So I appreciate that as well. But anyway, if you are new and you are here because I'm the John Campea, Robert Meyer Burnett commentary guy, that's not the only thing I want to be doing. There's a lot of people in the comments section that make the mistake of thinking that I'm trying to sustain making that content for my YouTube channel. It's just simply not the case. Those people are just stumbling upon me and aren't familiar with me and don't know that I have an entire background devoted to that. But even when I was doing it, that's not what the ultimate goal was. So I'm certainly not trying to bring that back. I'm just good at that. So other than that, my week was good. I had a good work week. I hope you all did too. It's starting to warm up here in Kentucky, which is kind of nice. It's very nice, but it's just not as warm as I want it to be. But other than that, I also don't talk about the weather, so I've already exhausted that already. I've had great workouts. I'm in a lot of pain right now, but we're going to get through it together because of my cold brew. But that's pretty much it. I didn't do any of the extracurricular stuff that I thought I was going to do, really. Didn't do any design work or anything like that, but I just made those videos, I guess, and they've been wildly successful. So if you've helped make them successful, thank you so much. I think one of the most fun things that I did, though, and I shouldn't say nobody's talking about it, but compared to the Campia Burnett videos. Nobody is really talking to me about the impressions that I did of Sean Chandler, John Flickinger, and Austin Burke, which that video was really fun. I've never done anything like that. I've always known that I could do a John Flickinger, but yeah, that was interesting. I called Austin Burke and I was like, hey, I kind of think that I can parody this if you're cool with it. So he gave me permission. I've never spoken to the Flick Pick. And for those of you who don't know, the Flick Pick is the reason probably that I'm doing all of this. He was the first YouTuber that I remember stumbling across. And then, of course, it goes to, Stuckman and the Schmoes Know, and then the rest is history. But Flick Pick was a homegrown individual. He's a little bit older than me. He lived in Indiana. I was in Kentucky. Still am in Kentucky. So he really set me off on this path. And I've talked about that a little bit over the years. I've never had contact with him. Not once. And it's weird because he follows me on Twitter. And I kind of started speaking in his cadence right then and there. I don't know why. He follows me on Twitter. He doesn't follow a lot of people on Twitter, but he follows me. But we've never had an interaction before. Ever. And I find that very odd. Even when I'd reach out to him years ago, before I was ready, before I was cool, I remember reaching out to him via DM and asking him to collab because I thought, wow, this would just be really easy if he got to know me and then we could just podcast together and then we'll solve all of our podcast co-host problems. And he never got back to me. It was weird. I mean, I'm not upset about it. I just found it unusual because he only follows 300 people and I'm one of them. And I also appreciated that he was always sort of an outsider to the Schmoes Know and Collider. It kind of if I collaborate with them one day is a way to collaborate with somebody that's a little bit more homegrown like me and not like them, not like they are. So it would just be cooler, I think. But anyway, so I made that video. Sean Chandler is somebody that I hadn't interacted with. He's not somebody that I grew up with or anything like that watching his content. He's just somebody that got big while I was watching YouTube. And so I don't have a relationship with him at all, but he reached out and he was super cool about it. And I've talked to him off and on since posting that video. So anyway, all that to say, good sports, those guys. And I appreciate it. There was nothing but love from that video. Of course, Austin Burke is a personal friend of mine. So I've made content with him. I think we're going to hang out sometime this week or so, but he's got a lot going on. But anyway, so that was a fun video to make. If you haven't watched that, it was pretty cool. So I'm just going to breeze through these Star Wars topics, and then I'll review Air. This is going to be a really short episode. So I'll tell you what. Star Wars Celebration, here a couple things here. So it was really smart of them to just go on and out the gate announce a bunch of movies and materials. Smart move. I remember covering Celebration a couple of years ago. I actually went to Celebration in Chicago a couple of years ago when they debuted the Rise of Skywalker trailer. And if my memory serves, the news, the amount of news and the amount of trailers that are released and things like that, it's a little bit more scattered throughout the weekend, and they kind of had a movie day and then they had a television day. If I remember correctly, it wasn't quite done the way that it was done this weekend. And this weekend, I really appreciated because they just needed to get the word out fast. They needed to make a splash. I don't know what they called it, but essentially day one was movie announcement day. So it's kind of a good thing and a bad thing that some of the stuff was finally coming into fruition. The stuff that had been announced, like the Acolyte. I think that's the only thing that we talked a ton about, but we never saw footage from, was the Acolyte. But it was nice to finally get some more context to things that had been announced years ago, while also finally seeing the Ahsoka trailer. And so for the most part, I think that worked. The Ahsoka trailer I liked. I'm just no longer a fan of the way that they produce these shows, with the exception of Andor. I just am over the look of them. I hope that Ahsoka adds some, I don't know what I want to say. Some geography. It makes it feel like there's room to play, some more interaction with the settings, things like that, instead of just having an empty canvas, in the background, because the scale is lacking with a lot of these shows because they are so restricted to the volume. And I've talked about that plenty, and I'm not even watching The Mandalorian anymore. I didn't think that I wouldn't be able to swallow The Mandalorian anymore. But I haven't watched in a couple of weeks, and with the Lizzo Jack Black stuff that came out last week, I'm kind of glad. I might watch it all once it's all out because I hear the finale's a banger, but mileage may vary. I'll just put it that way. It doesn't really mean much to me when they say the Mandalorian's gonna ball out at the end. But so I think in general it was definitely a good day for Star Wars, I think. But it doesn't have my trust entirely. The thing that I'm like really rock solid about, well, that I didn't mean for it to be like that, but yeah, that's what it sounded like. The thing that I'm rock solid about is James Mangold's Dawn of the Jedi. James Mangold was a filmmaker that I think was rumored to direct episode 7, if I remember correctly, but he was also rumored to direct Obi-Wan when it was a movie, I think. So he's kind of been in these circles for a while. Of course, having directed Indiana Jones 5, and that's coming out here in a few months. I think he's built a great relationship with Kathleen Kennedy. Seems like it kind of is reminiscent of her relationship to Rian Johnson. She really likes writer-directors. That's why JJ was there, for better or worse. But she likes James Mangold because he's a writer-director, and I think that it's a no-brainer. And the same reason why we were excited about I can't remember what it was called. Was it The Long Night? The Naomi Watts Game of Thrones series? The reason why we were excited to watch something that took place so far in the past, that way there's no consequence to what happens in the future, that excites me. I think they said 25,000 years before the events of the Battle of Endor. Or not Battle of Endor, Battle of Yavin, whatever it is. I think it's a no-brainer, and I think it's gonna be incredible, actually. So I'm really excited about it. I liked the Indiana Jones 5 trailer, so I think Mangold is gonna crush it with that, and also a Star Wars movie for sure. The thing that I'm perplexed about is the Rey Skywalker movie. And I think I'm more perplexed by that than I am Dave Filoni's movie. Because after all these years of expecting a Dave Filoni project, I'm not surprised that he's going to get it. Good for him. And he's going to get to kind of collapse all of these storylines into one movie. That makes sense because people do watch those shows and are familiar with a lot of those characters. So I guess it'll close the book on everything that's been building in that pocket, in that corner. But the Rey Skywalker movie, her creating the Jedi Order, the idea of it, the idea that we are rebuilding the Jedi Order again, it's not exciting. Luke tried to do this and failed. That was a part of the new trilogy. And I thought part of the point was that the Jedi as a religion, now, I say all this, that doesn't mean that Rey doesn't take what Luke, and I'm assuming that it has to. So every issue that Qui-Gon had with the Jedi Order, that Obi-Wan had with the Jedi Order, that Luke had with the Jedi Order, all of that is going to play into this. I guarantee it. Rey is going to take from her experience with Luke, and there's going to be a heavy Luke presence in the movie, and she's going to make the new Jedi Order. So it's not like that goes over my head. I get it. But that's just part of what I'm over in terms of feeling. We talk about Star Wars has nowhere else to go. Creatively bankrupt. The James Mangold idea doesn't make me feel like that. The Daisy Ridley idea does. And of course, I'm going to bring in I have my trust issues because of how much I despise Rise of Skywalker. And I liked the character of Rey in the first two movies, but I'm also not a dummy. And I know that when you zoom out and look at everything that happened with that trilogy, it did not manage its characters well at all, including her. So I wanted better and wanted more for Daisy Ridley. This is an opportunity for that for sure, but it just, I don't know, too soon. I don't know how to get excited about this yet. I just don't know. I'm not going to write it off. The director, I don't really know anything about. I guess the only other thing that gives me promise, but also not really, because it reminds me of just more fumblings from Lucasfilm, is that Damon Lindelof wrote the first draft. And I'm a huge Damon Lindelof fan. Huge. So I don't know if I just lost followers and subscribers there. But that's the only thing that was cool about it, and he's not on the project anymore. So I think that's really all that I had to say about that. It was, I think it was good for the Star Wars brand in general, but it's not necessarily gonna blow the doors off for a fan like me that's just in this really conflicted. I just have to sit back and wait. I just have to wait because I don't know how to get excited about any of this at all. I'm gonna take a break real quick, and on the other side we'll talk about Air, and then we'll get out of here. All right, we're back. Let me show you something real quick. Is it upside down? Yep. This is a movie palette. You can get 15% off of one of these by using my promo code. Go to moviepalette.com, use the promo code REWATCH15, and get a beautiful canvas of a movie of your choice. This is the film Fight Club from front to back. And it's nice. There's two schools of thought when you go pick out a movie palette. Do you instantly just go pick out your favorite movie, or do you pick a movie that fits the aesthetic of your room? Either way, this is Fight Club. A lot of greens, a lot of browns. It's very neutral. It'll fit once I have the time to hang it up. Who am I kidding? I have the time. I guess when I decide to not be lazy and I figure out what's going on with my room here. But other than that, go pick out a movie palette. You get 15% off on me. Use the promo code REWATCH15. Of course, the instruction is right there. So definitely check that out. It's the best way, hands down, supporting this content. So I appreciate it. So let's talk about the movie Air. I think some of the box office projections have come out already. Or I should say results, not. So first of all, the Super Mario Brothers movie has officially overtaken Frozen 2 as the biggest opening for an animated film at the global box office in history. So Air was never going to be able to compete with that. I don't think anybody expected Mario to be that successful, but good for them. Ben Affleck's Air earns $20.5 million in the film's domestic opening weekend. So I think the budget for Air was $90 million, so I think it's going to do well. I don't know what the international plans for Air are. Only the domestic numbers have been reported, so I don't know what's going to come of that, but we'll see. I hope it does fine, and I hope that Ben Affleck and Matt Damon just keep doing things like this, because it's exciting for me personally as such a massive fan of both of them. So yeah, when it came down to Air and Mario Brothers, of course Air took precedent, even though it wasn't the populist decision for sure, because, again, so excited to see Ben Affleck and Matt Damon unite. It's only been a couple of years. I mean, they were just in The Last Duel together, but I will see anything they do for the rest of my life together, or not together, either way. But it was definitely exciting to get a directed by Ben Affleck film. I said that in the weirdest way. Finally, Ben Affleck is back in the director's chair, and it is a populist idea. Let's explore the creation of the first Jordan shoe. I mean, I think that's it's a no-brainer that can be a movie. And if I remember correctly, the screenwriter got the idea from simply watching The Last Dance. And let's see, Alex Convery, he watched the Last Dance documentary, which was my favorite TV show of that year, hands down, and saw that sliver of a story and really pulled it out here. And of course, it's a great movie idea. So, a little summary. Sonny Vaccaro, and Nike pursue basketball rookie Michael Jordan, creating a partnership that revolutionizes the world of sports and contemporary culture. So, my history with this, I was born in late 1990. So, growing up, Michael Jordan wasn't the greatest basketball player in my life. And then let me rephrase. For me, I didn't know him as the greatest basketball player to ever live. I knew him in the way that I knew Coca-Cola. He was just there because he was larger than life and huge, and everyone knew Michael Jordan. His jersey was everywhere, but I didn't watch basketball, and I don't have like any memories of watching him play or anything like that. So in my life, he was Coca-Cola, and he was the guy from Space Jam for the most part. So I don't have a real deep relationship with the guy. I find him to be fascinating. Like I said, I love The Last Dance, and this kind of movie is just cool to me either way. It speaks to me, and I was always on board from the get-go. But all that to say, there are dads out there, and there are people that are also my age, which I guess I'm of dad age as well. There are people that are about my age and older that are really probably into this story, and it definitely was for them more than it was for me, without a doubt. Again, I'm coming at it from the Damon Affleck aspect, but a lot of people are going to come at it from the Jordan aspect as well, and that's what makes it such a great idea. It's got a great, enjoyable cast. I think it's really smart that they got comedic actors: Jason Bateman, Marlon Wayans, Chris Tucker, of course. Even Chris, I don't know, I never know how to say his name, Messina or Messina. He was really funny. Jay Moore, who's in it for like literally 2 seconds. They attempted to cast a funny guy in there. So I thought that was really smart, but also just underrated actors for comedy. Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. I mean, all the way back to Kevin Smith. On the flip side, when it comes to this movie finding its audience, I don't know that it grabs anybody that's much younger than me. And I think the main reason why is, of course, and of course, people of all ages and generations have a relationship with probably the Jordan shoe more than anything. I mean, it's not like a 12-year-old has watched every single Bulls game, but maybe they wear Jordans because their father bought them for them, or whatever, taught them about the Jordan shoe, whatever. So that aspect works to an extent, but I think the DNA of this movie will prevent it from being like uber successful, because at the end of the day, this does feel like a movie that you could just stream. Now, it will be on Prime Video eventually, I believe, because this is an Amazon distributed film. So this movie will have its audience when it's streaming. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. But at the same time, I don't know that younger people are that into Affleck and Damon. And there's something weird about what we're going through right now with brand movies. They're stories that feature brands that are older, and I don't think capture the imagination or the interest of a younger generation, which I think as we age more and more, they have a greater distrust with corporations and things. So I really do wonder how well the Tetris movie worked for Apple TV Plus. If a lot of young people watch that, probably not. If a lot of young people are going to watch the Barbie movie, are they going to watch this movie? There's a couple of others. The Blackberry movie, and definitely not going to watch that because they don't even know what that is. So a lot of these movies are for a specific type and a specific generation. So I don't know that it's going to speak to everybody in that regard. And I think that, the people that have just major distrust with Nike is a controversial company. And, I just think that's an aspect of it. That stuff kind of doesn't bother me. It's a movie to me. It's a movie. I'm sure that it's supposed to, and I'm sure they want you to go out and buy a pair of Jordans after this. I don't have that impulse, but it is a huge commercial for Nike and Jordan shoes, without a doubt. So I think that's also part of what's built into this. But at the end of the day, I don't get caught up in all that. Again, I was there to see what Damon and Affleck were doing, and this is just a movie to me. So it's going to really work on some people, and it's not going to work for others. But at the end of the day, this is a harmless dad movie. Everybody's saying it. It's probably the best dad movie since Ford v Ferrari, which also happens to star Matt Damon. In terms of Ben Affleck directing, I thought the movie was well directed for sure. I don't think that it had. This movie didn't have the heartbeat or the life that I think it needed. I didn't find it to be tense in particular. It was more just fun and breezy, which is fine and also convenient because the movie's called Air. So it's not that it's bad in any regard, but in terms of capturing my imagination and in terms of me feeling a little bit more involved in the story, because you kind of always know where you're going. You're always going to celebrate the fact that Jordan said yes to Nike and the shoe was distributed and made a ton of money. So it's not like my experience watching Moneyball, because I was so disconnected from that story and that tradition that it was all kind of new to me and fascinating, and I was like constantly learning. I don't have quite that relationship with this movie. So again, fascinated by just Damon and Affleck doing their thing, but I wasn't invested in a way that I thought I was going to be, and I think that just comes down to the DNA of the movie and how it was. But it was, look, it's going to be a movie that I rewatch, and I'm gonna plug it into my 2023 ranked list here in just a second. I'll let you see where I'm at with 2023 movies. It's definitely a movie that I rewatch and appreciate and enjoy, but I don't know that it's the most lasting film. When I rank Ben Affleck movies, I think it's probably my second to least favorite, just because I think there's more of an identity with Gone Baby Gone, The Town, of course. I haven't seen Argo in a long time, but I really liked Argo. I think Air is probably right behind that. And as time moves on, I think it's gonna make more sense. You know, right now it's a cool movie for sure, but I just don't know if it's as lasting as his others. And I don't know. There's less of a stamp, if that makes sense, a directorial stamp. There's less of it. And I think the other thing, too, is that and this is appealing, so I understand, but one thing that doesn't really appeal to me necessarily is that this movie it takes me out of it in the sense that it feels like it was made in 2023, if that makes sense. There's a couple of monologues and there's a couple of, I don't want to say logic leaps, because I'm not the best person to speak to this because of my age, and obviously I wasn't there. But it just feels like somebody wrote this movie knowing who Michael Jordan is in 2023, if that makes sense. So some of the lines of dialogue from Viola Davis speaking about how great her son is, it's almost like the dialogue knows for a fact that he's going to be the greatest of all time. And I'm not saying that Michael's mom didn't really have that faith, and I believe it. I think so many moms think that their son is going to change the world in that way, and it's a very real and human thing. But there's other stuff in here that just literally feels like, I don't want to call it revisionist history, because that's not what it is. It's just like too much, like, of course that character says this thing because it was written by somebody in 2023 who knows Michael Jordan is the greatest of all time. It's just how I would put it. I don't know if that's the simplest way to say it, but there are aspects to it that are like that, kind of take it out a little bit and make it a little bit more corny, I guess. But overall, this is a really, really solid movie. I gave it 4 stars on my Letterboxd. I just don't think it's without flaw, and I don't think that it is particularly as lasting as Ben's other movies. So anyway, that's my short coverage of Air. So let me pull up, let's see if we're ready to go to Letterboxd here. All right, let's go ahead and edit this. So for those of you who are new, these are all the movies that I watched in 2023, which is not a lot. Don't judge me. I have not seen a lot of films this year. In fact, I'm kind of looking at it and wondering, like, am I sure that I put all my 2023 movies? Let me just reiterate. So let's go ahead and add the movie Air. And I know exactly where I'm going to put this. It is going to go right above. You know what? I'm going to put it right below Creed 3 and above Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. So for those of you keeping score, listening to the podcast, so far it's John Wick Chapter 4 is the best movie, Creed 3, Air, Dungeons and Dragons, Knock at the Cabin, Shazam! Fury of the Gods, Quantumania. I do think Air and Creed could go back and forth throughout the year, but it just depends on what else we get. So I'm going to draw a line on this list. There's definitely a side of the line that I'm going to definitely rewatch and not rewatch, and I think it falls right between Air and Dungeons and Dragons. I like Dungeons and Dragons fine. I don't think I ever need to rewatch it anymore, but I will rewatch the top 3 at some point for sure. So John Wick, Creed, and Air, and that's where I'm going to do that. So anyway, that is my brief discussion on Air, and I think that's all I'm going to really do here today. I'm going to get ready for brunch, I believe, and then get ready for dinner with my family, and that's what we're going to do here today. I hope that you have or had a fantastic weekend. I hope you have a great week. I don't know that I'm making any other videos, but for sure, Brando and I will be back on Hot Takes and Sausage this week, and I think we're going to very soon record that Indian film review. I can't remember what it's called right now, but we will definitely check that out, and I'm excited about that for sure. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me. As always, you can find me anywhere you find things on the internet at Rewatch Ryan. If you're watching this on YouTube and you are a new subscriber, you can subscribe to the Watch Diary podcast wherever you get podcasts. You're smart. I got you. You just find the logo. You know it. I appreciate everybody who's hung out with me on the channel the last week or so, and that's what we're going to do here. Guys, thank you so much. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.